So everybody, thanks for listening. If you're a first timer, whether it's on the YouTube or another platform, please subscribe and share this. As a person that grew up in Rhode Island, that's there right now, and the election season is over, but it seems like 2024 is getting ready to come upon us. We're talking to a candidate that ran in 2022 in the state of Rhode Island, which it's extremely tough to run as a Republican in that state. David OConnell out of East Providence. Tough race for you. Can you just talk about a little bit about yourself as we open up in general?
Sure, I'll be happy to. Rob, thanks for having me here. I'm always happy to share the message of truth, of love of our country, love of God and family. My background is raised in Rhode Island. Grew up in the Fox Point area of Providence with your dad, which is really nice. It's a nice coincidence there, and we all grew up in a sort of a traditional neighborhood where families took care of families, where kids handed down clothes across families. You know, everybody took care of each other. There was a parish, obviously, that most of us belonged to. Knights of Columbus was a group that all the men belonged to in the neighborhood. So it was really sort of an enclave. If you want to call it a Catholic ghetto, you can call it that, but that's what it was. And we had a great time growing up as kids. Lots of kids everywhere. So from there, I went on to Catholic high school and a couple of years at junior college,
Mm-hmm.
and went into the jewelry industry, which was huge in Rhode Island way back in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. Then into an art form of sculpting for the Hasbro toy company, which was a wonderful time. But around 1986, I got involved with the pro-life movement, which was so very important. I learned about it for the first time of actually what was going on in the abortion of children across the
Mm-hmm.
country. And I was, of course, appalled by that America would be doing such a thing. And so then got involved in the pro-life movement, and have been involved ever since. Once you're involved in the pro-life movement, you're happy to go to the state house to lobby in favor of or against, in favor of pro-life bills, against pro-abortion bills. So I got used to the political scene and how it works. So for the past 4 years ago, and also this year, I ran for office at the state house. Unfortunately, lost both times, but met a lot of really good people who had have the same frustrations and the same desires and the same hopes that I have, that many people have, that we have a decent society, that we care for our families, care for our children, born and unborn, that we have fair and true elections, and that everybody should be responsible for their own lives and not become dependent for their entire lives on the state for something. If the state needs to help somebody in a certain time when their life is in a bad way, that's fine. That's what the state is for, but not continuously for, throughout their lives and through generations. So personal responsibility is a big part of what I try to promote in my campaigns as well as my personal life.
Right. And you hit on quite a few topics. We're going to try to hit them in segments. I do want to hit on the abortion issue, as it was a very big issue in 2022. Also, the state of the Rhode Island Republican Party. But first, I want to hit on what you just talked about with, speaking about growing up. My father has told me all these stories that, you kind of drifted into as starting off this conversation. You know, I grew up in an Italian neighborhood in Johnston. Again, like you said, is East George Street, Fox Point, that whole area where people cared about each other, whether it was food, whether it was clothing, whether it was you just needed a hand outside mowing the lawn or picking up leaves, whatever it may be, people were there. So I grew up in that atmosphere, and as you spoke about, you and my father also grew up in that atmosphere too. It seems like that's going away. Why do you feel like that's drifting away? This is not just a Rhode Island issue. This is a country issue where there's no civility, there's no one caring about each other, there's no like none of that those family dynamics in living in these neighborhoods anymore.
Well, neighborhoods seem to have gone away, at least from the extent where it used to be when I was growing up. Everybody knew everybody, and there wasn't so much time spent on screens, whether they're television screens or whether there's computer screens. Obviously, no computer screens, no cell phones, none of those things. And the television had like 3 channels, so you didn't spend time looking at a screen all day. You went outside to get to know the neighborhood kids. The parents got to know each other, and the kids would be over your house one day, somebody
Mhm.
else's house the next day. And as I say, there were community organizations like the Knights of Columbus, or there were other ones. Obviously, there were the Lions and the Elks and things like that. But there were neighborhood organizations where men and families would get together and get to know each other, and find out if somebody needed something. Sure, we'd take care of each other. But they made friends with each other in the neighborhood. Right now, I may know 5 people on the left and right side of me, but I don't feel like a neighborhood the way that I did when I was growing up. Why is this happening? I mean, there's a lot of reasons. A lot of technology gets in the way, or everybody has a car and nobody carpools anymore. But I think the fundamental part of it is a sense of community within our souls. And a major part of what I grew up in was a Catholic community, a Christian
Right.
community, where people were taught to love one another and help one another and be a friend, a brother, and a sister to one another. As Christianity decreases in its effect on our society, and it certainly
Mm.
has decreased, that's part of some of the consequences, in which there's a less of a love of neighbor, quite honestly, among people. Now, that's not only unique to the Christian religions.
Yeah.
It's because there are people with no faith who have friends. But as a general quality of a community,
Mm.
Christianity really automatically builds a love of neighbor and a desire to care about and learn about your neighbor and help him if there's some need. So I think
But
a decrease in the Christian part of our culture has had an effect in which there's a less feeling of neighborliness or neighborhoods in which we live.
David O'Connell here on Fire Breathing Rob. David, I want to go more into this because we saw, this past summer, Roe versus Wade obviously overturned. Some people were ecstatic about that, some were not. My thing was, this is going back to the states. If you live in a liberal state such as Rhode Island or New York, where these issues were codified into law as far as abortion goes, then it's not a big issue, as far as the people that are for abortion, I should say. The people that are against it, obviously, it still is an issue, regardless of that. But there is a lot of talk of people not understanding, in these liberal states, that this is still going on. Whereas, states like Florida, we have the 15-week ban. I told you where I kind of feel on abortion, where I used to be pro-choice. I was very ignorant on what really went on. I kind of did my own investigations and watched some videos, and kind of read more into both sides because I'm more of an economy guy. But I read more, and I would say I'm more of a pro-life person, except for the bans. And we talked about this on the phone. Rape, incest, and life of the mother, I think is okay, but the other stuff, I don't think we should be. Everybody should just be having sex with each other and just saying, "Oh, I got you pregnant. I'm gonna go have an abortion." This isn't a birth control abortion's not birth control. It should be, you want to have the baby. And like I said, personally, I believe it's just very rare, certain circumstances where this should happen, but it should be very rare.
Mhm. Well, in the pro-life movement, especially from where I am, and there are a variety of people who believe generally pro-life principles, like yourself, Rob, who understand that it's wrong to be used as birth control. Obviously, most people don't want that to
Right.
happen. But in the pro-life movement, I'll give you the principles that we have. The first principle that we always start a conversation with somebody who is pro-abortion or is just questioning or whatever it might be, is that the first principle is a child in the womb is a human being.
Right.
That's the first principle we have, and hopefully we can agree on that. If we can't agree on that, then we just part ways, shake hands, and part ways. Because if someone thinks a child in the womb is not a human being, I don't know what they think it is. Because medicine and science obviously shows that it's a human being who's alive and
Well, they
growing,
have
developing.
ultrasounds too.
It's really plain. Even if the child has a problem, suppose he's handicapped in the womb, well, he's
Yeah.
still a child in the womb who's a human being with a handicap. but it's still a human being. And we believe that that human being has human rights.
Right.
More than an animal. It's not a piece of property that belongs to the mother. She can do whatever she wants with. It's a human being. It's her son or her daughter. So she has rights. Obviously, she has the right to take care of that child, but we don't believe she has the right to kill that child because it's a human being. The second principle we have, first one being a child in the womb is a human being. The
Mm,
second principle is a living child is better than a dead child.
mm,
That sounds kind of obvious, but I hope people believe that's a second principle that the pro-life movement stands for. A living child is better than a dead child.
right.
How can we help that child to live? Now, in the state instances that you've mentioned, obviously rape, incest, life, and the mother, we can put two together because incest is usually rape. That's
Yeah.
usually the way it is.
Fair. Yeah.
An older man takes advantage of a younger woman, child, maybe probably a girl, who's in the family. So that amounts to rape also. But in the case of rape, we mentioned that if a conception occurs, there are three people involved. There's the man, the woman, and the baby. And we always stand for justice. Everybody should get what they deserve. That's the definition of justice. So
Mm,
what does the man deserve? The man deserves to be arrested, prosecuted, convicted, and thrown in prison and punished for his evil act. It's a terrible, terrible act. That's what the man deserves. What does the woman deserve? The woman deserves to be cared for, to be nurtured, to be given psychological assistance, physical assistance if there's harm to her, and support in the time and to help her realize, listen, don't think that this was your fault. You are completely innocent. You're a beautiful person. This is the man is the evil one. You are a wonderful person. Please let us help you get through it. And that's what she deserves. Now, what
sure.
does the baby deserve? To be killed? Well, certainly
No.
not. The baby hasn't done anything. The baby's not the rapist. The baby's just came along, a little boy or girl who's now growing in his mother's womb. So what does he deserve? Well, according to justice, he deserves to live. He doesn't deserve
Yeah.
to be killed. So how do we get through this, which is a very difficult situation? Again, we're dealing with the mother. We're not dealing with the baby. We can't talk to him or her, but we're dealing with the mother. And we try to encourage the mother to realize, listen, this child in the womb is not the man who attacked you. It's somebody else completely. It's not you either. It's a brand new person who's your son or your daughter. You have just been subject to a violent, brutal attack. Do you want to subject your child to a violent, brutal attack in which he is killed?
So,
Or do you
so,
want to be a mother and
Mhm.
protect this child from a violent, brutal attack, which is an abortion?
So what would you say to the woman that looks at says, they have the baby and they every time they look at the baby and think about the baby, they're thinking about being raped. Would you tell, and the woman kind of even before maybe she has the baby says something like that to you or whoever else is counseling her, would you tell her to have the baby and then give it up for adoption? Is that where you would go with that conversation, or how would you handle that? Because that's pretty traumatic.
It is very traumatic. Obviously, once again, the woman has gone through this great, horrible sexual assault, and she's
Yeah.
going to get through it one way or another. We're going to try to help her get through it through counseling, through nurturing, through just companionship. She needs to find usually a woman who's going to be a true friend and help her get through this, whether it's someone in the family or whether it's professional counseling. If she may feel like this child is a reminder of the rape. Uh, Please keep in mind that if the child is aborted, it doesn't take away the fact that she was raped. It's not gone.
Fair.
Keep that in mind. Meanwhile, there are many women who have conceived as a result of rape and have decided to keep the child. We can find some of these people in the pro-life movement. We've seen videos of them or we've met them, and they traditionally and universally say, this child is the light of my life. This child helped me to move on from the rape. It didn't take it away, but helped me move on. All of a sudden, I have this beautiful, loving son or daughter who is the light of my life, the apple of my eye. Look at what she's doing at 6 years old. Look at where she is in high school. We're the best of friends. And that doesn't, again, take away the rape, but it does bring something beautiful, which occurred which is a result of the woman's body as well as the man's seed. The woman's body nurturing this beautiful person who now is a wonderful. They usually can't imagine their life without them. And so there's a positive side. So you can have without erasing the rape, which is a horrible thing. The man should be punished. The woman can either subject her child to a violent, brutal attack that ends in the death of the child, which is another assault, or she can bring it to birth. And if necessary, if she just doesn't have the wherewithal, there are thousands and thousands of people willing to adopt that child and give it a wonderful life.
What would you tell these women that say, listen, I had a one night stand, I had sex with some guy down the road, now I'm seeing that I'm pregnant, and obviously the guy's out of the picture, maybe she doesn't
Yeah.
know where the guy is, maybe it was a
Right.
college or a high school thing, and she says, I can't raise this, it's too expensive, I have the rest of my life to live.
Mhm.
I have a feeling what I know what you're going to say, but how do you counsel these people? Because in a way, they made that mistake. They shouldn't have had sex with the person. If they did, they should have wear a condom, or they should have took other precautionary measures to make sure that wasn't going to happen. But there's also the issue that, let's say, they want to have the kid, but they're still worried and they still might have the abortion because it's very expensive for childcare. Maybe they don't have a man in their life and they're the single mother. They have a crappy job that doesn't pay a lot. How
Mhm.
do you talk to these people? I guess it's two different scenarios, but
Mhm. Well, the idea is if you're pregnant, you're a mother. That's already occurred. You're not going to be a mother when the child's born. You're a mother now.
right.
How do you treat your child? Okay, so if you are a mother, and let's assuming that you voluntarily chose to engage in relations with somebody, well, it's now you didn't think you were going to get pregnant, but you are, because that's the natural result of sex. So now here you are, and it's a shock and a real eye opener. What am I going to do? Is this now the rest of my life? Well, first of all, consider, once again, we spoke of adoption. But consider that you have a child in your womb, and once you discover you're pregnant, it's usually been a month since conception, so you've got about 8 months left to go, 7.5. And there's 8 months of your life in which you have to consider. Okay, there's going to be some sacrifices here, and maybe I'll have to get some assistance in finishing school, or maybe I'll have some additional aid for getting to giving birth to this child. But for the 8 months in which you make a sacrifice as a mother, consider that that child may have 70 years of life that they're going to receive because you chose to give birth and maybe make a sacrifice for 8 months.
Yeah.
You sacrifice 8 months, they get 70 years or so. That seems to be hopefully we would consider a small sacrifice for something great, a great gain for another human being.
But if a
As far as
girl's
the
in
cost,
college and
yeah,
even in high school and she gets pregnant 16, 17, 18 years old, or like I said, in college, she's 18, 19, 20, 21 years old. Most of the people there, if they're getting pregnant, as far as women, they want to have fun. They want to have their college experience. And you're saying these things, and I agree with you, but a lot of these females are probably not going to agree with you, and they say, you know what, pay the 600, the $1,000. I made a mistake. Maybe it'll be hard for me for a year, maybe a couple of months, but I'll get past that. How do you get to these people? Because a lot of people are not going to be thinking like that. That's just my mindset. And a lot of girls that I've met in college, they
yep,
want to have fun, drink, and do
right,
things.
yes. And so do the guys, obviously, but the guys is everybody's can act irresponsibly.
Right.
But when do you stop acting irresponsibly? When do you start acting responsibly when you get into a difficult situation? So the idea of having an abortion and moving on with your life, that's what the people at the abortion clinic will tell you. Oh, it's just a clump of cells. It's just a small thing. It doesn't really amount to anything. It's not a human being yet. Have an abortion, move on. But you will hear from thousands and thousands of women who realized that when they went into an abortion clinic, they were pregnant. When they came out, they weren't anymore. And the doctor went inside them and did a lot of scraping and a lot of painful things. And what they will realize that maybe a month later or years later, that what they did was very, very painful to remember. They regret having gone through that. They didn't have all the information. And many of them will make that decision based on fear. I'm afraid of my future. I don't have anyone to help me. What am I going to do? I'm all alone. And that's one of the things that pregnancy counseling centers do. And there are more pregnancy counseling centers in America than there are abortion clinics, believe me.
Wow.
And we'll be happy to, any of them will be happy to bring you in, have a conversation. It's free and confidential, and have one conversation with that person, and they'll realize that they're not alone, that they have somebody there to assist them to get through the difficulties and give birth to their child.
David, what about the situation that maybe the woman doesn't want the baby, but the guy does? How does
Yeah,
that plan out?
well, legally, he doesn't have a leg to stand on. The courts have given her complete and absolute autonomy to do whatever she
Oh,
wishes, and
wow.
if he doesn't want it, he doesn't have any authority whatsoever. And that obviously that's more
How is that
destruction.
possible, though? I know it's the woman's body that obviously the baby is coming out of. That's common sense, but
Right,
obviously the guy does have half of his DNA inside
of
that
course.
baby.
Of course, and you're absolutely right, Rob, and that's common sense. That's just a fact of life. But in the court system, the woman has a full autonomy, and he really can't get an injunction against her from getting an abortion. It's just the courts give no rights to the father when the woman is pregnant.
Wow. I didn't know that,
Yeah,
how that worked. Like I said, that's not my top issue as far as abortion, knowing what's going on.
no,
I know very much in depth of what the issues of this topic, and I think that people listening really need to kind of reshape their decision. You can listen to what the media says, and personally, I don't trust the media, period, anymore.
no,
I
no.
used to, not so much anymore, not after what's happened the past 3 years. So I've really dove deep into these issues that maybe I just said, hey, I'm pro-choice. I'm a guy, I don't care. That's what
Right.
and I'll be honest. That's what I used to feel. I'm pro-choice. I really don't care. If I get a girl pregnant, I'm thinking that it's probably going to be, I'm going to be the dad. I'm going to want to grow this kid up. That's the end of it. It's not like I'm going to be running around trying to get 100 women pregnant and seeing how this goes. But now, just doing my own research, listening to you speak on this, it's come to a different light. I know we don't fully agree on the abortion issue, but I think I've come a long ways to where I used to be, where I was just, I don't care, I'm pro-choice, whatever. It's the woman's
Mhm.
body, it's her choice. Now I have the issue because, and this is a whole different topic, but the liberals say my body, my choice for the abortion. But with the vaccine, it wasn't my body, my choice. And that was slowly where I kind of detoured away from these liberal positions that were in my mind. But
Well, yeah.
go ahead.
Well, the liberal position is self-serving. Obviously, when they say, and they started this way back in the 70s, my body, my choice. Well, obviously that's a lie. It's not your body. There's
Hmm.
another person in your body. If it's a little boy, obviously it's not you. If you're a woman, this little boy inside you is not your body. It's a boy. And if it's a girl, it's completely different DNA from yours.
I think that
So
was also against the men, David, as you just spoke about. It's the
yeah,
woman's body and her choice. The
right.
man that helped create the baby, whether he wants it or not, it's not his choice.
Right, exactly. He's completely out of the picture,
Right.
which again destroys what function, at least naturally, is a family. A man, a woman, and a baby is a family, even if they're not married, whatever it is. It is the foundational structure of a family.
David, where can people follow you on social media?
I've got my own just regular website, David O'Connell. For not website, but a Facebook page. You can
Mm,
find me on Facebook, David O'Connell.
okay. All right, David. Hey, thanks so much. I look forward to discussing more issues with you and you educating a lot of the liberal viewers that we do have watching the program. We do have a lot. So, and they
Right?
do, they may love you, they may hate you, but regardless, we try to keep it civil.
I welcome conversations with anybody. And thank you, Rob, for this. This has been a joy.